If you could see a change happen right now, if you could like focus on one major aspect of what's happening in America now, which aspect of the changes going on would you like to see happen strongly, most fully? Would it be police reform? Would it be, I just think police reform is the essential. Uh, there's a saying in journalism, which I'm a journalism major, that democracy dies in darkness. And if there's not transparency with the police force, who they're shooting, why they're shooting, if the cops are judging themselves, like, a police judgment board that's judged was legitimate or not, that there's just no reason for cops to play within the law. Their business isn't transparent, even though it's a public business, and it should be.
I have a thought about there's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs where they talked about, after you get past one level in life, you can go up a level, and then after you get to that level, after that level is satisfied, then you can go up higher. So and at each level you worry about different things. So the first level is more physical, right? Is my body fine, and is my health fine, and stuff like that. And then after you get that situated, then you move up a level and you start looking into security and consistency and stability and stuff like that. Then from there, you move more into friendships and connections. And then after that, the higher level, the highest level is more about self-actualization. And even before that, in this little networking group that you now become a part of, that you connected with, your friendship, now it's about rising to the top of that group. And then all the way at the top is self-actualization. That's when you feel like you're the champion or whatever, right? And so what I see racism and it's not racism as a person saying like the N-word to somebody. It's more about how a system is built and how does it stop your progress, right? And if we have this idea of what what an American is supposed to be, and we think of them as somebody who is a free person who can take advantage of capitalism, and they can show up to the marketplace and push out their ideas, and anybody can buy from anybody, and you can start from nothing and you can become something as long as you have freedom to move. When we talking about law enforcement and the way that our interactions have been with them, it actually stops us at that first level. Because I can tell you, just from a personal standpoint, I have 3 children. One who has autism, he's 4 years old, and he can talk and stuff, but he's very much like if somebody tells him to do something, he's probably not going to do it the first time that they tell him. And so one huge fear that I have is that he's 14, 15 years old, and he's big, and then somebody's trying to get him to fall in line, and he can't do it. And which is okay, people have autism. But if a law enforcement officer interact with him and he's chilling with his friends outside of a movie theater or something like that, and they come at him like that, he doesn't understand, why are you violating the rules? Because those people and myself, I'm subject to some of this as well. If you give me the rules, then I can understand and I can operate. But if you give me the rules and then all of a sudden you start violating the rules, I get thrown off. And so I don't know what to do, right? And so if something happened to my boy because he can't do this, and it's because of racism, so now I feel more powerless. So I can barely, and it's a lot of other people that have plenty of other thoughts and feelings about all that, but it barely takes you out that first level. So it's hard to move into that third level where I'm like trying to be friendly with everybody and interacting and becoming more interdependent. If I'm nervous about my life being ended because of the people who's supposed to be protecting us see me as a threat, even if I ain't done nothing. So well, so I definitely can see how that would take us to that to a higher level. So as far as what could be done, that independent, like I love this idea of that transparency and that independent, and I want that independence to be outside of the entity, right? I want an audit, and I
Yes.
want independent study that holds people accountable, that we can take names and faces and races and sexes, take all of that off the issue, and let's see if a rule was violated right quick. And let's also
Curtis,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to know before you got too far along, what was the name of that chart? Those different levels that you were
Oh,
talking about?
that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Thank you.
Anyone y'all heard of it? Y'all heard of it?
Yeah. I
Okay.
have to go through it every year.
Oh yeah, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So yeah, let's adjust the system to where it's not just pointed towards racism, where it's more pointed towards that American dream, that American thought that all people are created equal, and we're gonna weave in the system checks and balances to make sure that nobody is mistreated. So that's my thought on that.
So I'm gonna just backdoor you, just quickly go in there real quick. I think my take on it is probably a little bit different at this point. The way that I look at it now is I've been seeing the same thing. Well, I haven't been seeing it, but I've been seeing it for at least 30 years, but it's been seen for 60 years. Just the image, the concept of what's going on has been seen that long. I'm of the mindset now of more so I'm not relying on anyone to do anything to the system to make the system function differently. I'm looking at a sense of where does this not happen in the system? There's a community base, and this is why I was alluding to with Curtis when I was saying that I understand moving back to Acres Homes now. Like, there's a guy that I've been I've been studying his principles. His name is Claude Anderson, and the biggest thing that he puts up is the fact that as black people,
I know him.
Yeah, as black people, we lack community. Yeah. And so when I started thinking about this, I started thinking about it from a standpoint of, well, you don't see stuff like this happening in the Jewish community. You don't really see stuff like this happening in Chinatown. You don't see certain just groups.
Stuff like what?
Stuff like I've not seen the police beating down Jewish kids. I don't see there being a fear of Jewish kids. I don't see that fear. I don't see that imagery being put out there. So there's an accountability, but that's my point of accountability. I think that there's a certain responsibility that I have as growing up, and me and Curtis we talk about this all the time. Growing up, you had a neighborhood where you had gang members or you had quote unquote thugs, drug dealers, etc. However, if they saw you positive, there was accountability that they held to you to say, hey, we don't want you out here. Like, you go to school, you do whatever. The local drug dealer might give you some money and say, have lunch today. Or, there was a sense of community that took care of itself. Even within that microcosm of the world of saying, look, this is our community, this is our neighborhood, this is our stores, all these things happened before civil rights existed. My grandmother's from Georgia. They had the same local stores. They had all the things that you see functioning in the world today. To the point I made earlier about the Hispanic community is, if you notice that once a community develops, they don't necessarily separate like this Guatemalan over here or this is Peruvian over here. But if everybody speaks Spanish, you can bet that area, the buildings have the language in Spanish, things are there. Like, I'm an outsider when I drive to this part of America to get whatever I'm getting. But the community functions and supports itself. They're shopping locally, they're rotating dollars around, and they don't look to go outside necessarily for anything because everything that they need is in that community. And so when I look at it, I'm saying, okay, I know this much. I don't know where that exists for black people, like where a sense of community truly does exist to say there, because the way we were raised is, if you get a good job and you get money, there's no way on God's green earth you want to be back in Compton or you want to be back in Acres Homes. But this is the same environment that raised me and made me who I am. So I'm moving out of that to go to a place where now I'm in a suburb where I'm the most dangerous person. When I was in high school, I used to tell girls that I dated, listen, we're about to go to the movies over here. And she's like, why? I was like, because I'm going someplace where I know that I'm the most dangerous person in here, and I'm not dangerous. So I know nothing crazy is going to happen. I'm not going to duck a situation or anything, but these are the realities that I grew up with. So when I sit here and I look at now saying there's an accountability that I feel that I have as being black, to where, yes, I would like to see the police change. However, the system has shown me if I want things to change, it's where my dollars go. It's where my money is focused. The reason why all these corporations are giving money to us is because we spend the most money. We spend more money than everybody else and get told we have no money. Like, it's the weirdest balance of things in the world, but literally this is what we get taught. So I look at it as, yes, police reform would be great, but the likelihood of that going to happen across the country, it's about as hard as me getting all black people together and say, we're going to focus on this one thing and we're going to put our dollars together and go here. It all has to start at a smaller level. One of the things that I pointed out to people is people in Houston are protesting over George Floyd. However, there are several cases of police brutality in Houston that you could happily go get that information and put that out and protest about something where they can actually make a change, because the only thing that George Floyd and that incident has tied to Houston is he was from here. But the police chief and the city council here, what they gonna do about what happened in Minneapolis? Like, they're just like, okay, well, you guys go out there and protest, and that's fine, and we'll watch and we'll sit back. And then when your jobs come, when you can go back to work or life goes good again, you'll go back to work and we'll continue doing what we've been doing. So I don't see change happening unless we change how we approach the system, because I don't think the system changes. The system, which again, if you get a chance, write down Claude Anderson, because it's a very deep thing and I'm really starting to get deeper into it. But the system wasn't designed necessarily for me. Like, in all points of purpose, it wasn't designed for me. It was designed for people to come and get and achieve a bunch of stuff. Immigrants come from any other place, because technically, the way that I've learned it is that if you are not black of this skin tone, you're basically white. That was the view of it. It's like you came from another place, you come in, economic opportunity, things are available to you. So when I look at where we are now after all this time, I'm like, I kind of agree that black people are the only ones that don't have a sense of community. Like, we have neighborhoods that we live in and we're all together, but we get up and move out. And talking to friends that are Jewish, I was like, so you pick where you live based off where your synagogue is, how you can able to walk to it. Like, you make your decisions about your life based off the rules to your culture and your community. You know, from a comfort standpoint, if all of America seems like it's against you and they want to deport you and do all these things, you're going to stay around your people where you know you possibly have the same issues I have. So we're not going to talk about to each other. We're not going to deal with the police. We're going to police ourselves. We're going to shop amongst ourselves. We're not going to have these issues here. Because let's be real, if ICE came and got in Jeeps and drove into any of these Hispanic communities and decided that they were going to do a sweep to find out who's legal and who's not legal, they could very well do that. But that's always a threat. It's never an action. So I'm starting to look at the fact of, as black people, we don't have this sense of community. Like, we're not protecting ourselves at a level that allows for people to be like, well, you know, we can't just do this. We can't just do that. It's a bunch of people going out now with guns showing that we got guns and they got guns. And I'm like, we don't have enough guns. I've had friends I've had to talk to about the fact of, like, look, you're worried about riots coming to your house. Why? Do you realize to get to where you live, they've got to go through the police, then they got to go through the National Guard. At that point, if they get through the police and the National Guard, you should just join them. Like, don't sit there and try and fight them off, because they've gotten all the guns, all the tanks, and now you better get along to you better go along to get along, because at that point, it's a different ball game. But I really do believe that we can talk about the system and we can talk about what can happen to change it. And everybody can be an ally, but my thing is there has to be a unified starting point to say, this is where we are. If you're with us, great. If you're not with us, that's fine too. Just don't be in the way. Like, don't be opposed to progress. Because, Stan, to your point, in the next 50 years or so, there is going to be a turn where the white is going to be the new true minority and everything else going on. But my thing is, even if that's the minority, the wealth is still going to be with that same group of people. So voting, and as I've learned it, trust me, they can change how voting works. They can change how laws work with the amount of money, because there's always somebody that can be paid off of another race and another culture. They'll be like, well, we didn't have nothing anyway, so he just gave me $5 million. So yes, I'm going to lead these people this way. That's why black people don't have a leader. We don't trust them because nobody's willing to die. Martin was willing to die. Malcolm was willing to die. If you go down the list of people who have been killed, they've literally been willing to die for whatever they believed in. I don't see that in Al Sharpton. I don't see that in Jesse Jackson. I can go down the list. I'm not even sure Farrakhan's really ready to go.
Real age. Appreciate it. Yeah. Hey. Hey, yo, it's all love, but love got a thin line. And I go all out to defend mine. I ain't about to let no is in mine. I tell them worry about yourself and you'll be just fine. Where I'm from, wake up to commit crime and kill time, running from the canine. I climb while my haters on a decline. And if you're busy watching me, then that's a big sign. You ain't got enough going on. You need something else to focus on, or better weed to get loaded on. I've been campaigning so hard that I can't remember an election that I ever really voted on. I wake them up like putting folders on. I do my thing, I don't go along. And it's really sad, doing bad and they wanna get mad and lash out when the hope is gone. But they be dreaming and watching, we be scheming and plotting. They ain't leave me no options, man, I gotta get paid. My family used to be cotton and I still ain't forgot it. I ain't about to go back to ever being a slave. They be dreaming and watching, we be scheming and plotting. They ain't leave me no options, man, I gotta get